morning. How's everybody doing today? Welcome, welcome. We welcome you into this day at Quimper Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. And our opening reading today comes from Sherry Woodbury in her book, The Renewal of a Weary World. Welcome to all who seek renewal in a weary world. Welcome all who come with love and energy to share. Welcome to those who worry about the future. Welcome each one who is grateful for today. Know that in this place, you are not alone. In community, we share our strength with one another, and we keep the flame of love burning bright. Know that in this place, responsibility is shared. Here, tradition holds us. Ancestors shine a light from the past. Here, the young lift their bright faces and beckon us onward. Take my hand. We can go together. My name is Rosanna Almai, and I am a member of the board here at QUUF. As we gather, I acknowledge that the water, land, and shorelines here in Port Townsend are the traditional territory of the S'Klallam and Chemakum peoples and others. We honor and acknowledge our Indigenous members and neighbors and vow to help restore and sustain these homelands. If you are visiting today, physically here with us, I offer a special welcome and invite you to join us for refreshments and conversation in the fellowship hall out here and down, right after this service. We have a newcomers table near the patio doors where greeters will be ready to answer any questions you might have. For those of you online, just give us a call, send us a message. We'd be glad to talk with you. Welcome to you all this morning. We are so glad you're here. For announcements, the Community Council and staff invite you all who have volunteered in whatever way over this last year to come to a volunteer celebration on Friday, May 31st at 5 p.m. Yes, I know there's something else happening, but it will be finished by 5 p.m., and then you can walk over there. So you can do both. So at 5 p.m. in the fellowship hall, please come and see the more information in our Friday weekly update. This is a time to celebrate all of the wonderful volunteers of this special place. And if you're wondering where everyone is, if you're not from here, you might think this is an average Sunday for us. But we have 103 members at Quimper Camp today. So we're a little thin in the crowd. All of the children are at Quimper Camp. We don't have an RE today. So they're in Brennan having a wonderful, wonderful time. Also, the board wants to remind you that on June the 9th at 12:30, we have our next congregational meeting. This is our annual congregational meeting. You will be getting feedback of plans, things that happened this last year, ideas for the next year, but we really, really, really need people to be here because we have a vote. We need to vote on the budget for the upcoming year. So if you can't be here, we will accept proxies up until the Thursday before that Sunday. That's in 2 weeks. So 9 until the 6th, we'll accept proxies. Yeah. But on the 9th, we have regular services, and bring a sandwich. There'll be coffee. There'll be some light muffins or something. We have people planning to give us a little heavy coffee hour, but bring a sandwich, bring a picnic. It's supposed to be a pretty day. Last year when we did this, people sat out in the yard and had lunch, and then at 12:30, we will come back in here and have our annual congregational meeting and our vote on the budget. You will meet your representatives to Georgia Assembly, and we'll be voting on some things. We'll take a poll vote to see how you feel about voting for Georgia Assembly stuff. So please, please be here. We need a quorum to meet our vote. If you have children who are going to be here for Sunday, we do provide childcare during the afternoon annual meeting. So that will be available to you for free. Now, everybody, let's take a nice breath and settle our minds so we can have a lovely, lovely service.
Good morning. It's nice to see you all. I wasn't really sure how many folks were going to be here this morning. This is awesome. It's so good to see you all. Our opening words are by Sherry Woodbury. Here we are in our circle again, a circle of vision and reflection, a forum for deciding and empowering. Here we are, at the base of another bridge, another space spanning the shores of today and tomorrow, beckoning us to cross the chasm one day at a time. Here we are, gathered at the cusp of the future, at the boundary that holds community together. We are here in a circle of love and trust, brought to this moment by a series of choices and promises, by hope and gratitude, by our own shadows faced and befriended. With a servant's heart, with a leader's listening, with a parent's love truer than all our inner trembling, let us model the health we seek for all and lean into community. Somewhere out there, all we dream is possible. Somewhere in here, we are sowing the seeds. Will you join me, please, in our words for the lighting of our chalice? O light of life, be kindled in our hearts.
I'll do it in just a minute.
Okay. to celebrate the human community, to seek a wholeness that extends beyond ourselves. Let's join in singing our opening hymn, which is Gather the Spirit. Our Time for All Ages today is a story that is told by will be told by our speaker today, who is coming to us virtually. C.B. Beal is an activist for justice and truth and freedom, and a consultant for Unitarian Universalists all across the United States and elsewhere. And they are coming to us today, as I say, via video. So we're just going to stay in our places. I'm not even inviting the childlike or childish to come forward. And we'll hear CB's story, and then we'll also hear their sermon later on. I'm going to go down.
Billy Bixby was rather surprised when they woke up one morning and found a dragon in their room. It was a small dragon, about the size of a kitten. The dragon waggled its tail happily as Billy patted it on its head. Billy went downstairs to tell their mother. "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Billy's mother. She said it like she really meant it. Billy went back to their room and began to get dressed. The dragon came close to Billy and waggled its tail, but Billy didn't pat it. If there's no such thing as something, it's silly to pat it on its head. Billy washed their face and hands and went down to breakfast. The dragon went along now. It was bigger, almost the size of a dog. Billy sat down at the table. The dragon sat on the table. Now, this sort of thing was not usually permitted, but there wasn't much Billy's mother could do about it. She had already said there's no such thing as a dragon. And if there's no such thing as something, you can't very well tell it to get down off the table. Yeah. Mother made some pancakes, but the dragon ate them all. Mother made some more, but the dragon ate those too. And Mother kept making pancakes until she ran out of batter. Billy only got one of them, but they said that's all they really wanted anyway. Billy went upstairs to brush their teeth, and Mother started cleaning the table. The dragon, who was quite as big as Mother by this time, made itself comfortable on the hall rug and went to sleep. By the time Billy came back downstairs, the dragon had grown so much it filled the entire hallway. Billy had to go around by way of the living room to get to where their mother was. "Oh, I didn't know dragons grew so fast," said Billy. "There's no such thing as a dragon," said Mother. Mother spent all morning going back and forth between the computer on her desk and the kitchen while Billy played. She told herself that she went the long way around through the den for the exercise, not because there was a dragon in the hallway by the kitchen. After lunch, Mother started going out the kitchen window and then back in the room with her computer, since the dragon had blocked all the doors in the hallway. She told herself it was for the fresh air, since there's no such thing as a dragon. By mid-afternoon, the dragon filled the whole house. Its head hung out the front door and down the steps. Its tail hung out the back door. There was not a room in the house that did not have some part of a dragon in it. The dragon snored happily and softly, and the whole house vibrated every time. When the dragon woke up from its nap, it was hungry, and a bakery truck went by. The smell of fresh bread was more than the dragon could resist, and the dragon jumped up and ran down the street after the bakery truck. The house went along, of course, like a shell on a snail or a house on a dragon. The mail carrier was coming up the path with some mail for the Bixbys when their house rushed past them and headed down the street. He chased the Bixby's house for a few blocks, but couldn't catch up. People came out of their houses as the house and the mail carrier went by. They thought maybe it was one of those surprise outdoor parades people are having nowadays. When Mr. Bixby came home after his long day at work, the first thing he noticed was that his house was missing. Luckily, one of the neighbors was able to call from the porch to tell him which way it went. Mr. Bixby got on his bike and went looking for the house. He studied all the houses as he went down the street. Finally, he saw one that looked familiar. Billy and Mrs. Bixby waved to him from an upstairs window. Mr. Bixby climbed up the dragon's head, over the top of him, up the neck, and onto the porch roof. He went in the house through an upstairs window and took a deep, careful breath and said, "How did this happen?" "It was the dragon," said Billy. "There's no such thing," Mother began to say. "There is a dragon," Billy insisted. "A very big dragon." And Billy patted the dragon on its head. The dragon waggled its tail happily, and then, even faster than it had grown, the dragon started getting smaller until soon it was kitten-sized again. "Mine's dragon's this size," said Mother. "Why did it have to grow so big?" "I'm not sure," said Billy, "but I think it needed to be noticed." Thanks for listening to the story today.
No.
It's the offering. It is?
Yep.
Okay, and I read that before the offering?
Sorry?
I read that?
Yeah. Just as a note, we found out this morning that Christina Brink, who was supposed to be here as worship assistant, it was not able to come, and Mary filled in with 15 minutes notice. So let's hear it for Mary.
But you want me to read this?
I want you to read that.
Okay.
Yes.
Now we have the offering. We pause for a time of generosity and to receive an offering which today goes to Jumping Mouse, Children's Center. Brenda David is here to tell us a little about the work they do. And the ushers will, let her come up and speak.
Good morning. First of all, thank you so much for your generosity and for having this offering for us today. And know that it definitely and truly directly affects the children and the families in our community. If you're not aware of Jumping Mouse, we serve mental health therapy to kids 3 to 12. And we're one of the only therapy centers that does serve kids as young as 3 years old. We have our main office in Port Townsend. We have an office inside Chimacum Primary and Chimacum Elementary School, as well as one in Brennan Elementary School. So we thank you very much. And we have a short video that's about 4 minutes long that was just developed for us. So it's a fairly new screening, unless you've been to Hearts in Bloom this year. So thank you so much.
My son would not be the person he is today without that therapy, which is just grounded. He's comfortable with himself. What more can you ask for is a human being that's comfortable with themselves?
I work with special needs students, and a lot of them come from either trauma backgrounds or just situations that are, been really difficult for them. As a teacher, I'm not always able to stop what I'm doing, and I have to run a classroom, and so sometimes I'll have a student that is struggling, and as much as I can try to console them, if I know I have the opportunity to be able to connect with a Jumping Mouse person in our building, we have the ability to really help that child on the core level of when they're in their most fight or flight moment.
Something like Jumping Mouse as a part of a larger ecosystem of student support is really critical to get at that part of education, which is to develop people so they can have happiness and fulfillment in their lives.
Every child needs to be seen, heard, and validated. When a child comes to Jumping Mouse, they direct their therapy through play. Our therapists are there to provide safe boundaries, to witness and to walk with children and their families as they heal.
My son was being supported at the highest level, and I could see that in him. He wasn't acting out at school. I wasn't getting reports from teachers of any behavioral issues.
Being a teacher sometimes can feel pretty isolating. You're in your classroom and you're, working with your group of students. I was able to join a book club and work with a group of teachers along with a member of Jumping Mouse to work on what our needs were. It really did teach us that we can network, and it built wonderful friendships.
Internal challenges may present as emotional and behavioral dysregulation, affecting families and classrooms. In addition to providing therapy, Jumping Mouse offers training in trauma-informed care and providing support and strategies in the classroom, which benefits all children.
The work in the book groups has helped teachers change their practices, think differently about how they resolve conflict between students, how they support kids in their regulation, and just make their classrooms better places.
Here at Jumping Mouse, we started with play therapy for children. As that strengthened, we increased support to parents and developed stronger relationships with local schools. When children and families heal, positive impacts are felt throughout the community. Together, we are strengthening the future of Jefferson County.
I'm there to educate and to make sure that students are following through the steps of life and they're meeting their milestones, but they can't do that when they are in fight or flight mode. And so to be able to have that support from Jumping Mouse so that I can pivot as a teacher and meet that student's needs, that's a very powerful piece to have them in our classrooms.
Being able to have services that go into the school is critical. Jumping Mouse really impacts my work as a superintendent, our work as a system, because it's just part of that ongoing work of affecting climate and culture.
He did well. He was making friends during this time. My son is a healthy adult who has had the good fortune to be able to work through what could have been trauma that really stuck. I wish there was a jumping mouse on every corner for every child. You know, our world would be a different place. Yeah.
Hang on a second. Will you say our offering words with me, please? This fellowship is the community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. The morning's offering will now be received.
is high. Your daddy's rich, and your mom is good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry.
We set aside time each week to share the joys and sorrows of our community. We, most weeks, will mention a joy or sorrow, a concern that is broader in the community. This Memorial Day, our first stone will be placed for those members of QUUF who have died over the last year, and I will read their names. Dick Williams, Terry Tees, John Kleiss, Leslie Aiken, Judith Bonsale, Pat Roach, Gus McCutcheon, Tom Moreland, Rick Doherty, Ann McKelvey Nelson, and those are the names. We light a candle for Christina Brink, who is home today with back trouble. We hope she heals quickly. Kate Simpson asks for a candle of gratitude. She says, I want to thank all my family at QUUF for your cards, visits, calls, the meal train food, and the pleasure of getting to know some of you better. I hope to be with you soon. We place a stone for our friend and hopefully a member soon, Lori Mary Jones, who was in a tragic auto accident about a month ago with a garbage truck at Discovery Bay. She was flown to Harborview with serious multiple injuries and sadness for the death of her dog Stella in the accident. She's now recovering at Life Care here in Port Townsend and would love to receive cards. And then we place a final stone, holding in our hearts these joys and sorrows that I've shared, but also thinking of those joys and sorrows that are held silently in every heart. Thank you, Mary. I invite you to settle in for a few moments of meditation together. Get comfortable in your seat. Maybe take a few deep breaths. Close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And we'll pause for this time of stillness together and reflection. Start with these words. Conspire to breathe together. Come, friends, let us breathe together. Conspire in these few moments of quiet. Slow down your breathing. Slow down your mind. Come into the presence of each other. Come into the presence of what is most true and real and worthy. Allow your heart to open into the quiet. Open to your life in all its wonder, in all its sorrow. Conspire. Know that around you are others who breathe with you, whose hearts open, who know laughter and tears, who are present to you as you are to them. Feel the breath between us all. the breath of life that sustains us. In the stillness of this time, may we know that we are joined one with another, connected by the life that holds us, the breath that sustains us, and the love that is ever present. Let us pause together in stillness. So may it be. Amen. I have a couple of readings to share. The first from Be Here by Reverend Michael Slack from their 2022 Berry Street lecture. All of it. All the things that matter bring an energy along with them that is also present here. We are not just people in a room. We are so much more than the words that are in our heads and make their way out of our bodies. Unless you've done some deep intentional cleansing before you arrived, and even if you did, that energy lives in our bodies and exists here. And I don't want to do what we tend to do and fixate so much on what's supposed to happen in here and focus so hard on the forward thinking that we're here for, that we forget what actually has taken up residence here in our bodies, in this place that is our shared faith, that we lose connection with our story and what we are actually carrying. Rather than that, I want us to exist at the speed of our presence. I want us to exist at the speed of our presence and just be here, in as much as what I've shared that resonates with us. Be here. Even if it's uncomfortable and doesn't make sense yet, be here. Honor that energy, hold it with care and concern. Let the tears come if they need to. Be angry if that feels right. Connect with someone else here in the room or in the chat who you know will appreciate it. Be mindful of what the person next to you or in the chat with you may be carrying, and appreciate they were willing to be here anyway. Be here. And let us bring the spirit of connection into the room and into our hearts, wherever we happen to be. And if you're not quite ready, take your time. Come in when you can. Will you just take a comfortable breath with me? Here are words by Hosea Ballou on paradise as justice and care. Ballou was a rural circuit-riding Universalist ancestor born in New England in 1711, and he preached, "Hell was what human beings created in this world by cruelty and greed. Paradise is also available here and now, manifest in beauty and marked by relationships of justice and care. Here end the readings for today.
Okay, I was a child of the 60s, and some of you who lived during that tumultuous time experienced a lot of the things that I did. And this song, it was written to not only go back through those times, but it's a song to the generations that are coming. Oh, the times they were changing, then you could see the right from wrong. As that wasted war was dragging on, we sang our protest song. When 4 Kent State students, they were murdered on the lawn, we held an all-night vigil and we cried until the dawn. We were the counterculture with the hair, the beads and clothes. And some of us dropped out on drugs, but others we arose and turned inside our inner soul to help our fellow man. With passion and commitment to heal the troubled land. There's a song that must be sung to the next generation. Its melody comes rising from the times when we were young. Through the idealistic eyes of youth, we weave some gauzy thread into the fabric of justice for our heroes who are dead. And the black preacher who left his dream in Memphis, Tennessee, took us on a march, a long, long march to racial equality. And we joined our brothers and sisters and sang, we shall overcome someday. The hatred and the bigotry, we were involved that way. Time flies by and people die, new generations lead the race. On that national American conveyor belt, they learn to run the race and climb the corporate ladders. They're the children of the 90s and 80s. Success can be measured by a Porsche or a Mercedes. And the heroes of their day, tell me who might they be? They're the corporate raiders, political dictators, and the Rambos on TV. They say get a high-paid job, have quality friends, and help the corporation. But it all seems shallow in the me generation. There's a song that must be sung to the next generation. Its melody comes rising from the times when we were young. Through the idealistic eyes of youth, we weaved our gauzy threads into the tapestry of justice for our heroes who are dead. When the present generation looked beyond their neighborhood, they saw climate change and racial strife. I think they understood. For George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Gaza, the protest marches grow as they work on the tapestry we made so long ago. There's a song that must be sung to the next generation. Its melody comes rising from the times we were young. Through the idealistic eyes of youth, we weaved our gauzy threads into the tapestry of justice for our heroes who are dead. There's a song we all must sing. Let it roll on, let it ring. For justice we must sing. Let it roll on, let it ring. Thanks.
I am so glad to be among you again. Will you take a breath with me? Settle in and get comfortable. The idea of preemptive radical inclusion is pretty simple. Those of us who hold any kind of leadership, and in UU congregations, I understand that to be all of us in different ways and at different times. We have the responsibility to learn, change, and grow, to preemptively create radical changes that will include people in our collective movement towards justice and equity. We are a faith that understands that it is a choice that we all get free together. A simple example of what I mean by preemptive might be simply that we don't wait until we know someone who uses a wheelchair or other wheeled accessibility device before we build access ramps in buildings where there are stairs. Physical accessibility and universal design can simply be part of how we do business. And when it is, there is a direct outcome that those of us who do use wheels to get around, and those of us who will one day, we will experience more justice and equity in our ability to move in the world and participate in community. But I get ahead of myself. When I was last here, I told you that I'm descended from about 400 years of Puritans and other settler colonialists, from people with names like Harbottle Grim Scott. I come from people who cling to radical individualism and the absolute assuredness that our way is the best way and the only way. Puritans and others of those early settlers weren't big on feelings or words for feelings. Do you remember mine? Mad, sad, and what was the other one again? Oh yeah, mad. Puritans weren't good at noticing their own or other people's feelings, and as ancestors, they have successfully passed that on to so many of us. Those of us who come from Puritan roots and those of us who come from the more theoretically generic white people's individualistic and perfectionist culture, and those of us who might not come from it, but nonetheless swim in the waters, well, this is a really tough time to be us. What with our individualism and not many feeling words that we need in a world that is devastated, hurt, and violent? We're in this continuing pandemic that would be so expensive and unpopular to properly eradicate that governments around the world would rather pretend it isn't a risk than deal with the complexity of cleaning the air. There's devastating and ongoing gun violence in the systems we might expect to help with that don't. We struggle with continued police violence, climate disaster. It is 90 degrees here in May in Massachusetts. It's not supposed to be 90 degrees in May in Massachusetts. Climate disaster, homelessness, a healthcare system in near shambles, and white Christian nationalism and straight up fascism are rearing their heads and getting elected. Individualism and not many feeling words is not doing us a favor right now. Take a breath with me. I was raised on a small farm, so my roots aren't just Puritan, but I was raised, socialized with cows and with a strong belief in productivity, American exceptionalism, and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. I was raised to think carefully and logically about something and to believe my solution, having been taught by other people who knew best. So many of us were raised to believe our own thoughts and ideas so much that we might not even notice when we have an idea instead of remembering a fact. Especially if we spend most of our thinking time hanging out with people who are mostly just like us. Now, relying on my own assessment of things has led me to some unfortunate circumstances. Last time I was here, I promised to share how I am my own cautionary tale. When I went to seminary in the mid-1980s, I arrived quite confident that I already knew so much. It was there that I first experienced someone who told me they were allergic to gluten. I asked, gluten? Who's allergic to gluten? Humans have been eating wheat as a basic staple for thousands of years. People aren't allergic to staples. This tone of voice and this look on my face, that single-sided lip twitch, that's disbelieving contempt. And then someone else kept asking us not to wear perfume because she was allergic to scents. I doubled down. How could you be allergic to scents? Smell is like smelling. People have been smelling things for thousands of years. No one's allergic to smelling. I didn't have enough knowledge at that time to understand that the smell of something is a chemical compound that enters the body through the nose. Same way a virus does, by the way, floats in the air, enters the nose. But then I didn't realize that it's chemicals that make those scents, and fragrances literally make people sick. I didn't have enough knowledge to understand from this brilliant cognition that I had been raised to believe I had, and, oh my goodness, and I couldn't simply believe them. Without a second thought, I substituted my personal experience of no sensitivity to perfume for these people's lived experience. My experience of the world trumped theirs. Now, subsequently, and possibly as proof of a deity who exists solely to provide me with awkward learning opportunities, I've become a person with celiac disease who can't eat even microscopic bits of gluten because it'll make me sick. But there's more. Yeah, because that's not enough. I am now also a person who is incredibly sensitive to scents, petroleum products, all sorts of common chemical compounds, and also, flowers and grass and, well, pretty much nature. Lots of things that have been around for thousands of years. So I've been this person who uses my own judgment and reality to judge others. And I called it unfortunate in the introduction. And I can find some humor now as I deliver it as a cautionary tale. But my attitude and behavior were really harmful. I hurt people. where I needed to stop talking and pay attention to their experience, to bear witness, where I could have apologized not only for getting it wrong, but for being a jerk about it, where I could have made amends and changed my behavior. I didn't. My priority was being right and being invested in my own rightness. But in the process of trying to be right, I caused harm. I was contemptuous to a person who could have been a friend and colleague. Will you take another breath with me? Are you feeling this? I had to learn to believe people when they told me about an experience that I did not share. I have had to learn to believe the emerging consensus of a group when they share their experience of life that was missing from the schooling and media of my own upbringing. I went to school from 1967 through 1984, Dick and Jane through Jimmy Carter. My education was not nearly complete. Learning to believe people didn't mean discarding my own experience and ideas, or discarding my capacity to think and reflect, but it meant that I had to learn not to automatically believe what I thought. Because really, I could only think within the framework I'd been taught. It's not right for me to question someone else's story if I'm not also willing to take a hard examination of my own. I had to learn to notice and differentiate ideas from truths and hypotheses from facts in my own head. And the truth is that when I'm paying attention, I notice that what I think first is often what I was taught the earliest in my life. My ancestors did not do a good job of telling the whole truth. I told you last time I was here that as a child, I was considered a failed girl, a tomboy. As an adult, it took a long time to find language for my gender, and I went through all those attempts I mentioned to figure it out, and that added up to this string of I'm a butch, queer, tomboy, farm girl, masculine of center, womanish type. Not helpful, not specific. Thank goodness for people exploring gender and language, and now I can simply say that I'm trans non-binary. My pronouns are they and them. But I live in a world where not everyone corrects themselves or notices when they use the wrong pronoun for a person. Some people deny my, and in our story, Billy's experience. All too often, I hear people say, non-binary, that's not a thing. I've never heard of it. One's non-binary. There have been women and men for thousands of years, and that's it. Where I need people to accept my experience and the emerging consensus among gender nonconforming people that there are more than two genders. People instead substitute their judgment. Or maybe they believe that, well, okay, it's a thing, but it's not one that's important. Just a little bit of glue. Just the fragrance in my hairspray, but I won't use perfume. Just a little bit of misgendering. So here we are. I have been the person who doesn't believe someone else's experience, who substitutes my thoughts. And I am a person who other people don't believe my experience. Lots of things can be true at one time. And there's a difference between experience and facts, and this is an important one for another day. I don't have to bear shame over my past. Being a jerk when I didn't know better or care enough. But I do need to be intentional about learning to know and do better now. I need to be intentional about repentance and repair. And I now do know better about so many things, and I am ethically obligated to do better. For me to be preemptively and radically inclusive of people, I must recognize that they experience their lives and their circumstances in society in ways that I could not. not just in ways that I don't, but in ways I couldn't. I will never know what it is to be a young Black man pulled over by the police just feet from his mom's house and beaten. I can't just walk a mile in his shoes. What I can do is believe people when they share their lives. When thousands of Indigenous, Black, and other people of color share about institutionalized discrimination in healthcare, law enforcement, housing, hiring, and so much more, share their experience. Even if I have never experienced or noticed race-based discrimination, my responsibility is to believe them, to believe this emerging consensus. So I've made the idea, don't believe everything you think, part of my perspective. It means I notice when my assumptions and beliefs and other people's statements don't match up, and I lean into the discomfort of the possibility that I am wrong. Not reach first to make them prove it, but reach first into myself to explore, why am I so certain that I am right and they are wrong? This is a remarkably humbling practice when I do it right. Preemptive radical inclusion means that we must preemptively seek the emerging consensus of people and groups who experience marginalization and oppression in ways that we do not, so that we can prepare ourselves to be radically inclusive. We build that ramp before we know exactly who's going to use it or how. We must be willing to openly engage the stories and experiences of those who are marginalized, especially in the ways where we bear privilege. And we keep bearing witness when we would really rather just shut the conversation down because it's uncomfortable and it makes us all a jangly because it's so different than what we thought was true. In this way, we who are cisgender can learn about the oppression of trans people by paying attention to trans people. We who are white learn about how people of color experience marginalization and oppression by listening, reading, and reflecting, by regularly checking our thoughts. It's not one book or two workshops, but a series of choices we make about learning what was kept from us in our previous or formal learning. It's about who we choose to be in relationship and how we are willing to be present with them even when it's uncomfortable. It's not about being right, that baloney I was raised with. It's about being present. It's about how we are able to be collaborative in increasing justice in the world. What we need to make and unmake in ourselves and our communities. Now, some of us have made it this far in our lives, believing in pulling oneself up by their bootstraps, perhaps feeling badly when we failed over and over again to do so. Others of us began to find out for the first time during that early year of the pandemic what it was like if the boots were fragile or the straps were missing. One by one, and as communities, we begin to realize that radical individualism is a myth created and supported by communities of radical individualists who helped one another. Maybe we remember that settlers and Puritans built their structures together and were taught how to farm on North American soil by indigenous people who willingly shared what they knew. Or maybe we remember that women fed Henry David Thoreau dinner every night and did his laundry while he was off in his woods, and he regularly came home to do chores. It was interdependence. Jack Kerouac came home to his mom for months at a time so she could nurse him back to health after his adventures. Radical individualism is a lie perpetuated by a culture that is designed for patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism. It's the design to keep us apart from one another, to keep us from being able to know the difference between being an individual and individuality and individualism. Two of those are authentic, who we are. One is an inauthentic, forcing us to be separate. In our current political and social situation, being inclusive is taking on a whole new frame. It's not simply welcoming someone at the door with a smile or restructuring our language to include people of other genders. Preemptive radical inclusion means that we consistently work to increase our ability to ensure that people's needs are being met, sometimes even as those needs are changing. Even as those needs are under assault from those who would deny human rights to some, would limit or ban the full range of reproductive health treatment, would ban books of LGBTQ+ or Black folks, would ban topics, but not guns, would deny medical care to trans people because they have substituted their own judgment. There is such a thing as a dragon. And we have to tell the truth in order to right-size the problem that we must deal with. The story I told today ends before Billy's family has to figure out how to do reconciliation and correct the problem. The house is no longer on their plot. It's way down the street on someone else's land. There is still work to be done. As the earth warms and the pandemic continues to rage, even as most of our culture is in denial, we have a choice. Systems of oppression that may not be immediately evident to us continue to harm others. We have a choice. We chose to build a ramp before someone needs one, and we do it because it's right, even if no one ever needed one. We do it because at some point we realized it was important to make a change. We choose to examine ourselves and our communities for those ways that we've missed the boat and fallen short of creating actual justice. And we listen closely to those who are most impacted by injustice. And then we make necessary repairs and changes. We understand that inclusion is a doorway to justice. It's not a goal in itself. I believe that we can and must live the reality that all of us means all of us. It really does. And I believe that we can because that's who we are as Unitarian Universalists. We can choose to learn what we need to create an inclusion that moves everyone closer to being free, to justice. We can all choose to get free together. Are you with me? Say yes or amen or something if you are. Thank you.
Our closing song is For All That Is Our Life, number 128 in the Gray Hymnal, if you need the music.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for service as we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift, which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our closing words by Eric Walker Wickstrom. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who they were, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown, in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that might be for us, however hard that may be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you could be. So may it be for us all. Please join me in our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish our flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment, the power of transformation. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising, bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Oh, where are our dear mothers? Day is a breaking in my soul. Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Oh, where are our dear fathers? Day is a breaking in my soul. Some have gone to heaven shouting. Some have gone to heaven shouting. Some have gone to heaven shouting. Day is a breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising.